All right. Welcome, everyone. We are here at the Unlocking Unlimited Potential Stories. This is a new venture for me. I'm super excited about it. And I am so excited to do the book talk version of this show that we are planning. And in this book talk, we are going to gather readers of Unlocking Unlimited Potential to share their experiences, their insights, and connection to their own stories. And today we have Lindsay Titus with us. Now, Lindsay Titus is an amazing person. She is a behavior specialist, a motivational speaker, an author, new author at Codebreaker, a podcast host, an educational coach, and so much more. Lindsay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so good, Brandon. Thanks so much for doing this. Like, I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, it's funny because we were going back and forth. We were talking a little bit, and you were saying, "Hey, let's go live." And I said, "You know what? I've had this idea that I've been kicking around for a while that I wanted to do this live stream, invite a bunch of people on, and do all sorts of talks and all sorts of connections." And I decided that, with your motivation, I jumped right in, and here we are. We are doing this thing, and you want to talk about this book, and I'm excited to talk about this book with you. I haven't had a chance to talk to too many readers. The book isn't even a month old yet, so I'm excited to dive in. But before we do that, Lindsay, I know I introduced you, but I would love it if you could just take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to kind of go on what you said, like, I think it's so fun when you can have an idea and then it just becomes reality. Like, I think it's so fun. Like, again, another example that we don't have to know every step. It's like, hey, I have this crazy idea. Let's try it. And I just think it's so fun. So I'm so excited you said yes, because here we are. But yeah, so I like to say by day, I'm a K-12 behavior and autism specialist for a local school district here in Rochester, New York. So I like to say I do all things behavior, which the really cool part of that is it's kind of everything. And the tough part of that is it's everything, because behavior is what we do. So I do some instructional work. I do social emotional work. I work with trauma. I work with challenging behavior. But it's really cool. So every day is a new day, and I absolutely love it. Then outside of that, I am a coach and speaker on mindset and behavior through Define University. And that really came out of my own burnout, my own, journey through burnout, and really feeling like I had no idea of who I was. I couldn't define who I was. And I went through my own journey, my own transformation, and now I coach educators on how to do that. So we can ditch overwhelm, we can ditch stress and worry and all those things, and instead replace it with authenticity and vulnerability and courage and joy. And so that's what I do. I say at night, but really I do it all day long as well. And then in addition, I'm a family girl. So I have a 6.5-year-old at home with my husband, and we are homebodies. I guess everybody is right now, but we are outside of the pandemic as well. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Your story is awesome. Your story is incredible. I love it. I think you left one very important part out, that you are now an author.
That is true. I feel like the one thing before my journal came out, it's always the podcast that I leave off, and now it's the podcast. And yes, I'm an author, and it's still crazy to call myself that. So I've been doing the podcast a year. The journal just came out on the 7th. Yeah, that one right there. So exciting to see it in the hands of people, and not just on my computer screen. So very cool. Super excited about that.
Well, congratulations. That is an amazing accomplishment. It's amazing, being a new author myself and having this book written. I totally can relate. It's an amazing feeling. But you reached out and you said, let's talk about your book. And I, the first question I always think of when anybody says that they took the time out of their day to, number one, to read my book, to buy my book, and to also follow up and reach out and say, hey, this was something that I really enjoyed reading. I mean, that is just, first of all, it's an awesome thing to hear. And, secondly, so why did you do it? Why did you decide to get this book, and what made you want to read it?
Yeah. So I think the night nice part, we had met, right, through the virtual world, before your book came out. And the more that we chatted, we DM, saw you on Twitter chats, the words you were speaking, the words you were using, I was like, he gets it. And I was like, yes. And everything, it was one of those, yes, yes, yes. And I say that because I think the concept of our inner potential, right? Who we are, right? This transformation from the inside out, it's still a newer kind of phenomenon in education, right? We're so used to serving. We're so used to serving others. And please don't stop serving. That's what we do. But I think in that service, we forget to serve ourselves. And so again, these last 2 years, that's really been my mission. And then when I connect with educators that are like-minded, but see it through a different lens, I want to soak it all up. I want to take it all in. I want to hear points of view. I want to learn new things. And so when I found out you had a book, it was a no-brainer to say, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to dive into it to see what new perspectives can I take. And, right off the bat, knowing that you, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but monolingual, bilingual, is that right? Awesome. So that's new to me, right? That's a population that I've started working with, but I really hadn't. And so I was like, ooh, this is a new lens I can take on this part. And, again, just to see, so really to have another resource to share with people and to say, hey, this isn't just me speaking my truth. Like this is what we need out in the world. So it was a no-brainer to me.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I mean, I think it's important to know too that this work applies to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's something bigger than writing this book just for educators, but also we all need to work on ourselves. I always say it, the journey towards unlocking unlimited potential in all you serve begins with us. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something really important. And I think that you picked that out and that you came to the situation saying, you know what, this is something that I want to work on. And this is something that I'm willing to dive into 209 pages of this book and walk myself through something. I think that is important. And I think that we have so many things going on every single day, and time is definitely something that we don't have enough of. We don't have enough time to do certain things with our students. We don't have enough time sometimes to slow down what we're doing at the moment. And I think that anytime that another educator out there decides to dive into something like this, it just means so much. And I think we never really see it from the author's perspective, right? We never get a chance to sit down with every author of every book we've ever read and to be on the other side of that, to be the author, to hear that somebody went and did something and took pieces of this book and used pieces of it in their experience. To me, that's what it's all about, right? Sharing those ideas. I mean, we connected, through various groups, and we're a part of a lot of the same groups in the Professional Learning Network. And I think that there's a lot of like-minded individuals in there as well. And I think I always say this is that, we always look for people who push us, who motivate us, who are models, just like our students look at us as models of behavior, models of everything. And I think that that's really what it's all about. And I think what's also really awesome is that there's so many people that are beginning to tell their stories now more than ever. And in the past couple months, especially with all that's happened with the last 9 to 10 months since last March, of people finally sitting down and turning to social media. And I think that, would you say as well that, you found hope in that journey through social media?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually doing a Twitter chat last night, and it was one of the questions, right? Like what has, what kind of started, who was somebody that got you on that journey? And I was thinking back, and it was a really fun, like a connection path to make, like me connecting with one person who's Dave Schmittou, me connecting with him led me to Teach Better, which led me to Codebreaker, which led me to fill in the blank. Like both of those families have just opened their arms and said, here, come on out, come on in. And I think for a long time, I was like, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm fine being by myself. I'm fine. I got people I can connect with. I got friends. I'm okay. And then I was home. And then I was home for so long. And I was like, but am I really okay? Like I was okay. But I also live by the notion that I want to be more than okay. Like I want to always be expanding and evolving. And I was like, I can't do that in the, the walls of my own home. So what can I do? Well, I can reach out. I can go on these social media sites that I've always had, but I've never really used, for that connection, for that relationship piece. And I have learned more about myself and other people. And I think that's the really cool part of it, is that through this whole process, it's that give and take. When I give, I'm also then receiving, and I'm learning more about myself as I'm helping other people learn about who they are. And I think that's the really cool part of having like a book like yours, is that it's going to be a different experience for every educator reading it or every person reading it, because you're asking them to look in themselves. You're not asking them to go, there are activities, but the activities have to come through your like personal lens. And that's what I think is really cool. It's not just go do this book and every student's potential will be unlimited, right? It can be, but you've got to put your spin on it. You've got to put your authenticity as the person. And I just think that's what's really cool, is that it's the same product. We all have the book, but now I get to take meaning and I get to go apply it in how it applies to me, which is I think really fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's so important too. It's for us to always be looking to grow. And I think we both found a lot of people and a lot of different networks in the social media area where we were able to see there's so many other people out there that are looking to this space to grow. I mean, I keep seeing another person's going to publish a book and another person's going to publish a book. And I just say, keep going, right? I just say, keep going, because it's not about being the number one bestseller out there, but it's about telling your story. And it's about those people that are out there that, teachers have great stories to tell. We all have some embarrassing moments. We have moments where we have failed. We have so many moments where you're working with kids day in, day out, young adults, and even younger and older, and just having that opportunity to work with individuals. First of all, number one, it's amazing because we're hopefully positively benefiting the human race. And on top of it, we're also trying to just kind of do better with the world in front of us. And I think that leads to some interesting stories. And I think everybody has some really interesting stories to tell. And I always say that. So it's awesome that you are all of those reasons that you said why are the reasons why I wrote the book. They're for that reader. They're for that reader who wants to keep growing. They're for that reader that wants to do a little work, wants to come back to the book after a chapter, but most importantly, can take something every day out of each chapter and say, I'm going to do this little bit tomorrow to improve myself, and constantly pushing yourself. So that's awesome. So you talked a little bit about your reasons why you read the book, but so you've been through the whole thing. I know we did a podcast not too long ago where you'd only read just a little bit of the book, and now here we are. We're doing another talk about the book club, about the book. And I remember saying to you before, I was like, well, we're doing kind of like a book club because you're the first person I know that's really read it. So I'm excited, first of all, for that podcast to come out. We had a great conversation then, but also, what were some things that resonated with you? I see all those Post-its in the book. I love seeing that.
Yeah. And, I think from the book standpoint, for anybody listening thinking like, well, I don't know why you would think I don't know, but if you are, I think, again, I think we talked about this on the podcast. I love how you designed each chapter to truly be, they all link together, but they're also very standalone. They're also this chapter is on this part. And the reason I like that is because I think one of the biggest things I see people that kind of get overwhelmed is because they think they have to do the whole thing before they can start implementing something, right? I have to know all 10 steps to take before I'm going to take step 1. And it's something that I continue to like squash every time. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Just do it. Just do that. Go do that. You know to do that. Do that. It's probably like the most frequent conversation I have when I coach people. I'm like, nope, you don't. Just do it. And I think what's really cool is that there's 209 pages, but you could take these 5 and you already are going to level up yourself, because that's how to me impactful every chapter is. And so I think the thing that resonated the most with me is that, one, you started off the book looking within. What's my why? What's my purpose? Which, with the business define you, hopefully you know why I love that so much. Because I don't think we can hear it enough, because I work with a lot of people that are like, well, I know my why. And I'm like, what is it? And they can't tell me. So I'm like, knowing and truly implementing or living are 2 very different things. And so you have embedded in there, know it, now write it, now go do it again, so that even someone reading that's like, okay, I'll do it later. It's like it pops up 3 or 4 times, right? Is your sign on the side of your door yet? Is this out there? And so I think one of the things is the way that you wrote it is that it's not a one and done. Like, all these themes keep resurfacing through the book, which I think is just such a good analogy to teaching, right? We don't teach one and done. We don't teach something on Monday and expect it to be done. We embed it multiple ways. And, some of your examples from your later chapters really still tied to your why and your purpose, even though they were about the chapter on, working with, ELL students. It all related together, right? Or the chapter on culture responsive teaching. It still was essential that you got to know what you know and what you don't know, so you know where the growth is going to come from. And so I think from that point, it really, what resonated with me was, one, just the interconnectedness of the book, but also you brought a way to tie in research, but in a really simplistic manner. Like, there's research embedded in it, but never did I feel like, oh, this is a research article, right? It was easy to read and understand, but so much growth still came from it. And I think that, is what I appreciated, because I could sit down and read and then be like, oh yeah, that's a good, I have my purpose, but I don't have it anywhere around me. Like, that makes sense. Why haven't I done that? Right. So I think just those little moments that you're allowing the reader to consume what you wrote, but then create it so it works for them, I think is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, right? If we're doing something, if we're having a professional development session, there should be something we're walking away with, so that we can immediately do what we just learned, or we can immediately put it into practice. And then there's that follow-up that comes with it. It's funny you mention those 2 chapters, the English language learners and the culture responsive teaching. They're kind of chapters that are in the book that people don't necessarily expect to be coming from me. And part of that reason is, and for example, like, we're both teaching in the same state. You're at one end of the state, I'm at the other end of the state, and the school that I teach in is, almost 57% Hispanic Latino. And so I'm dealing with language learners. And I think that it's important that one thing that I learned through my process, going through the journey of the dissertation and studying, was that was an area that I just felt that I wasn't so good at teaching. And I had been teaching this particular group of students in a dual language program for the past 10 years. And I, for whatever reason, created those self-limiting beliefs in myself. And it wasn't until I went to a conference and saw people referring to themselves as bilingual educators. I mean, I personally don't speak another language. And as I'm sitting there and hearing these people say, I'm a bilingual educator, I do this, I'm sitting there and hearing, well, yeah, I do those things too. And I can also impact and influence this group of students. And so you bring up a really great point. I think the point that you bring up is that idea of self-limiting beliefs, that idea that there are so many thoughts that we have on a regular basis that go through our head. And sometimes those thoughts can either push us forward or drag us down. And that whole idea of looking within, how do you coach people through that in your experience, in your journey, and how does that tie into some of the things that you saw in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when I teach limiting beliefs, and it's a big thing, so I'm gonna do my best to simplify it. The number one thing I have people do is start paying attention to the language that you're using. And so I think a lot of times we don't realize how many limiting beliefs we have or we are using or anchoring to in a day until we really do that. And so I will have people either voice record them, write them down, and then together we will look and analyze. And I'll say, okay, how many limiting beliefs did you see in the day? And it's usually a low number. It's usually, 2, 3. And I look at it and I'm like, I see 10, or I see however many. And the things I always have them look for, and what I look for in myself, is I have to, I need to, I should. Because if we are saying those things, we're saying things outside of ourselves. We're saying things because we think we should, because we think we need to, and not because it's what we desire. It's not what we are declaring, right? If it is, it gets to be an I get to, I choose to, I love to. And so I think that's where I start. And I also then start with this understanding of, if they're not wrong. They're beliefs that you believe to be true because of the experiences we've lived our whole lives. And the crazy part for me is when I learned that limiting beliefs come from prior to 7 years old. I was like, the scariest thing being that I have an almost 7-year-old at home. I was like, oh man, we got some work to do. I can only imagine the limiting beliefs in her, in my daughter. And so it was cool though, because it almost gave this like weight lifting of like, oh, I haven't done anything wrong. It's not, so quickly our brains want to go to, what did I do right and what did I do wrong? And I just live in what is. What's my thought right now? And is it serving me? I coach them through a series. And the ultimate question to ask is, one, is it true? Like, is it written down in law somewhere? No. Is it serving you to believe that it is? No. If they're no's, then it's non-negotiable. You're going to rewrite it because it's not serving you. And if you're not serving yourself, how can you serve others? Right? And so we do, and we do a good job until we can't anymore, until we're exhausted, until we're tired, until we're so frustrated that it seems like it's everything outside of ourselves. But really what we're asking is, why can't I feel like me? Why can't I feel light and airy and fun and energetic? It's because we're so weighed down with all these beliefs that we get to just kind of rip up and throw away. So I think that's where I start, and then we build the momentum and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I think it's important that we understand, those questions you were saying, Howard. It's important to ask yourself, what does this language mean? And where is it coming from? And that whole idea of understanding your story and how important it is to just take a few minutes. I know there's a particular kind of chapter in the book that goes through walking you through saying, okay, you are a teacher, you are a principal, you are a parent, whatever you are in the realm of teaching and serving others. Okay, how did you become that? Mm-hmm. And looking at the influences, looking at the role models, looking at the story behind the story is really important. And I think that's an important exercise for you to actually walk through and just, I've seen some readers that have been sending me pictures of the work that they've been doing, and they're sending me pictures of their story. And it's really rewarding, and how often do we as a staff get the opportunity to sit down and do that? And the chances are that you've had the chance to do that consistently. It probably hasn't happened because there's so many other things that are going on. And that whole idea of self-care and that whole idea about worrying about ourselves is where it's all coming from. You can teach any page of any book, any curriculum, you can give that to anybody. But if they don't have what's inside of them to believe in it, to understand why their fire is lit, right? Then how could we expect them to keep it burning? And I think that's a valid point that you make. Now, you came up with this awesome idea, Define University, the 30-day challenge, a journal. So you had the opportunity to create that. And I think that one thing I was saying to you is I love the idea of it. And I love the idea of doing those 30 days, those 60 days, those 90-day challenges, putting yourself through what I call the hard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about this, and how does it connect to what's going on in unlocking unlimited potential?
Yeah, absolutely. And to recap the part that you talked about with the story, it's where one of my stickies is at in the book. Is because I think sometimes when you ask people, again, we make things bigger than they need to be. So if we say, "What's your story?" Some people are like, "I don't really know," right? Like, I don't know where to begin. Where does my story begin? And so I love that you give some guiding questions. I love that you give those things to think about, because again, if we're starting with nothing, it can feel overwhelming. Well, what if I get it wrong? What if I don't write enough? What if I do this? What if I do that? Right? Those are all those thoughts they're really fear-based thoughts that are holding us back. And so by answering those questions that you have, right? Who are your role models? What knowledge are you passionate about? What was school like? And then you bring in the community, right? I think it's just so important, because those are just solid reflection questions. But when you pull it all together, that's your story, and you get to own it because it's yours and nobody else has it. And so then to look at, so I've been doing journaling for about 2 years now. And what I really found is I like structured journals, or what I call structured journals, meaning there's those guiding questions that are in there they're there for you to fill out. I don't do so well when it's just a blank page, because I get in that, like, I don't really know what I feel like writing today. But if there's a question, if there's something to respond to, oh, I can do that every day. I'm the same with meditation. If I just put on calm music, I fall asleep. But if I put on a guided meditation where it talks to me and it tells me what to visualize, what to think, what to feel, I am all for it. So again, you got to know what works for you. So I've loved journaling. It's kind of always been that idea. And I also love sharing motivational quotes and phrases. So last two years at this point, I've been doing daily messages on Instagram, just in the stories, and I just kind of talk. Whatever comes to my mouth, that's what you hear. And yeah, so I took those thoughts, those stories that I do every day, and I put them in written form. So there's 30 of them for the 30-day challenge. And so there's 30 daily doses of inspiration to get you thinking, to get you moving. I love affirmations. I love the whole process of affirmations, which I know you touch on in your book too. I call them mirror moments, because I love standing in front of the mirror, standing tall, get your shoulders back, speak to yourself with the authority that you deserve. And then the rest of it are the guided questions. There's gratitude, there's celebrations, there's connect and reflect to the inspiration. And the cool part is you can't do this wrong. So you could use it all day long. You could do it in the morning. You could do it at night. You could just leave it open on your desk so you can see that inspiration. You can see that mirror moment. There's no way to do it wrong. You just have to do it. And so I went back and forth. Do I do a whole year? Do I do 90? Like, how long? And the concept of 30 days kept coming to mind, because I really believe in small steps lead to those big gains. So I said, you can do it for 30 days. If you can start your journaling in 30 days, like, that's the growth I'm looking for. And then we'll see what comes next. So that's why I, capped it there. And it was an amazing project. And I'm so excited it's out there.
Yeah. And talk a little bit. This is kind of your unlocking unlimited potential story in a nutshell, right? Talk a little bit how you came to go from this idea that you were working on to finding Brian and Daphne and Codebreaker.
Yeah. So it's crazy, but I guess it's not that crazy of a story, right? But it's the power of connection. So, really back, I don't even know, last summer, I guess, started again connecting to people, really, and connecting on a different level, not just like, hey, how you doing? But really being intentional about those connections. And I started connecting with people that had books coming out, and I connected with people that I was like, whoa. And so I was introduced to Codebreaker, and I was like, I really loved the mission that this family stood for, right? It's not even like a company to me, because it's like a family. It's like this network. And so then Jillian came out with her picture book, And I was like captivated by it. And so Jillian's actually the illustrator of the journal. So what you showed, all those quotes are her illustrations, which was phenomenal. And they've quickly become like my backdrop, and I just love them. I have them like plastered all over the place. Yes. So she took some of my quotes and made them pretty. And then tragedy struck my family. So not to take the conversation there, but tragedy struck. And so I had this journal drafted, and I had reached out to Brian, and he was like, I really love the direction this is going. Like, let me know when it's more complete, because it was really hard to visualize because it's not a traditional book. I said, absolutely. And I kind of put it on the back burner. And then on Christmas Eve, my mom passed away, and I went to Florida for the week. And it was the only thing I wanted to work on. It's the only thing. I would open my computer, and these words, the words that are written in that journal, just came to me. And it was the only thing I wanted to do. So I did it. Luckily, I've done enough of this work to know, once if your gut is telling you something, you go with it, right? You lean into that energy and you do it. And so I did it. I finished it. Jillian worked her magic that week to meet with me. She was like, oh, you're done? Like, I'm done, because I just couldn't stop once I started. And I sent it again to Brian and Daphne, and I said, here's the product. What do you guys think? I sent that on the 31st. On the 1st, I had a contract, and on the 7th, it was on Amazon. So when we talk about timelines, we blew up that timeline.
Super speed. Absolutely.
Yeah,
wow.
That aligns with the unlimited part, right? If I had sat there and said, well, I'll send it next week because it's probably going to get them a couple months to figure it out, and maybe by summer it'll be released. No, I just said, I'm going to send it. Like, if I limit something, it's because I'm limiting it. I'm deciding, I'm putting that limiting belief on it and putting it in this box and saying, do not open until. And the ability to squash that, the ability to throw out the timeline and say, it's going to happen when it's meant to happen. And it was meant to happen fast, because it did. And that's just the power of truly believing in unlimited potential and not predetermining any timeline, because we create it. We create it by the actions we take, the mindset we hold, and the language we use. But if I keep telling myself I can't do it, it's going to take too long, I don't have enough time, that's exactly what we'll find.
Yeah. I think that's so valid, right? And I think so many educators can relate to choosing either the path of unlimited potential or the path of burnout during this really difficult time. When the pandemic started, when we were all back in March, we're all different than we were back in March, for sure. And I think a lot of people decided that they were going to take action and they were going to push forward. And there were conversations that were starting to happen in our classrooms with our students that weren't necessarily happening a year ago or 2 years ago, that now people were just starting to dive into all of these different things that were happening. And I think a lot of educators took the opportunity. I mean, especially, just watching what's been going on at Codebreaker and seeing all the new authors and seeing the birth of Road to Awesome Publishing and seeing the authors that Darren has been putting out, which is linked to Codebreaker, because there was a demand for people that wanted to share their story. There was a demand for educators that said, you know what, I'm not going to listen to these limiting beliefs. I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to put this thing down on paper, because that was empowering to them. I can surely say that was me, because it saved my life in education, because March, April, May were brutal for me. And I was just not sure how I was going to continue in this direction for whatever reason, for various reasons, not just the fact that there was a pandemic, just the fact that, when you're doing something, when you're a teacher for, or you're in any employment opportunity where you're there for 15 plus years, 20 years or more, you start to question, okay, what's my next move? And I think we need to, like you just said, I think we need to already have our moves planned out and be thinking about those short-term goals, those long-term goals, and thinking about our why and our purpose. And if our decisions are related to our purpose, then this whole process, it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be doable, right? Because nothing's easy that takes a lot of work. That's on us to do that work. And I think that's really why I have something really awesome. We've talked about this. We have something really awesome to offer our people. And I'm going to put this here. I'm having a little issue seeing comments. This is my first time using the live stream. So if I'm not reacting or popping your comments on the page, I will fix that in the future. I apologize with that. But what we have here is we have a chance for you to win a bundle, the Define You University, the Define University, the Define University. There it is. The journal and the book, Unlocking Unlimited Potential. And the way that you can do that is by heading over to my website. If you visit brandonbeckedu.com to enter to win, tell your story, tell your Unlocking Unlimited Potential story. And we are going to award a winner by Friday night. You'll see an option when you get on my website to click to enter to win, and you will have the opportunity to do that. And if you don't win, because I only have one opportunity for someone to win. If you don't win, we have a limited supply of these two books together also on my website at a good rate. I believe it's a good rate that saves you a little bit of money as well. So please head over there, check it out. You can see it at the bottom of the ticker on the screen. It is our opportunity to give something back to you. We'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear your story, your Unlocking Unlimited Potential story. And if you do so, we will be announcing the winner very soon on Friday, who that is. So that is what's coming up. That's our giveaway for the day. Also, what I want you to do is I have to honor someone today, because part of one thing that I'm adding to these new shows is we are going to be honoring a very special educator or human or person, individual, whoever, who unlocks unlimited potential in all whom they serve. And I have to give a big shout out to my main man, Bradley Skinner. Bradley Skinner, also known as AKA DJ Phony Stark. Bradley Skinner, huge help to me today. A Codebreaker author who's coming out with an awesome book very, very soon. I can't wait to read it. He's been talking about it and writing it for a while, and it's really going to be an awesome story. I cannot wait for you to read about Bradley and his story. So he also helped me out a ton today to make sure that I was ready, because all of us here at Codebreaker, we are a family, and he is definitely a very helpful member, helping me today get this all sorted, and his expertise. If you please follow him, check him out at Bradley W. Skinner. He has an amazing setup. He does some amazing media and he does some amazing stuff. So please give him and check him out. So congrats to Bradley Skinner. We are so proud to know you and be your partners in crime, my friend. So the last thing, so Lindsay, this has been an awesome talk. So after reading this book, after talking about your story, everything, I would just love you to finish this sentence. Unlocking unlimited potential means.
I love it. I love that. I guess, sentence starter, right? So to me, unlocking unlimited potential means continuing to evolve who I am, while also simultaneously honoring who I am right now. So for me, it's about evolving, but about honoring where I am today without limiting the possibilities, so that I truly can and I get to create a life of abundance, passion, and purpose. So for me, that is really what my mission stems down to. That's why I'm here. That's why I show up every day, and showing up as I can, right? As I am. And I think, what's really important to me is that, kind of going back to something you said, like when we focus on us, that to me, the whole part of my journey, that was the hardest part, right? It's not the deadlines. It's not the courses. It's not what I create. That's the easy stuff, because that's where my passion comes out. It's more of the hard work is breaking down the beliefs. The hard work is looking in the mirror saying, I am worth it, right? The hard work is saying no to something that sounds good so I can say yes to something that's great. And so I think it's more about, once you can figure out what you value and what aligns with you, I think it gets to be easy. But yeah, that journey is going to unpack a whole lot of stuff. And I think that's where we've talked before about how important coaching is, because you're not meant to do this process alone. And what I love, last plug for your book, is that, again, if you're not there yet to invest in that level, this is where I started. 3 years ago, I bought books like this that I could do on my own, and I could journal out questions, and I could really do that work. And that helped me. That was my starting point to get me to where I am today. And so I think that's so important as people are figuring out and discovering their true potential in this world. Just start somewhere. You can't get it wrong. Anything is better than doing nothing at all. So that's, yeah, I just wanted to say that part.
You just start. That is something that is said a lot. Daphne McMenemy always says that those are the reasons that she ended up at Codebreaker with Brian Aspinall, because those were his words. You just start. And they couldn't be more true to two people on this show, and they could not be more true to so many other people. So, Lindsay, you have a lot of great things going on. How can people keep up with all your awesome happenings?
Yeah, so what you see on the screen, that's my Twitter handle. Instagram is a little different. It's lindsay.titus828. But everything is on my website, which is Define University. That's YOU, university.com. And that has everything. That's got how you can reach me. That's got the podcast. It's got freebies. It's got, you name it, it's got it. Although now that I'm mentioning that, I got to get the journal put on there. But it has everything on there that you can find. It's the easiest way to connect with me.
There it is. DefineUniversity.com. Love it. So thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you that made it through the whole show, even more awesome. Like I said, this was our first of many Unlocking Unlimited Potential stories. We didn't really know how to jump in. We decided we were just going to start as well. We were going to jump right in. So here we are. We did it. First episode in the books. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining me. Everybody, if you're looking to keep in touch with me, you can see my contact information down there at brandonbeckedu.com. You can find copies of the book there. You can also get on, and don't forget, you can also enter to win both of these books, which I think go together like peanut butter and jelly. And also, you can buy a limited amount that we have together in a bundle. We're super excited about that. And the last thing, please remember that the journey towards unlocking unlimited potential begins with you. Thank you so much, everybody. Have an awesome day. Continue to educate with passion.